Hey guys, it's Vandy back on Carpe Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we are doing something new for deck profiling where I'm showing a fight and also the deck profile at the same time. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this, so hopefully it just works out well. First up today, we're going to have our Dragon Empire Kotihblaze deck. So this deck has been an interesting one to deal with since set 3 it involved having different cards in Soul in order to restand your rear guards. And now in set 6, it's a little bit more consistent because we have more cards that send themselves to Soul and feels like it can kind of be aggressive at all times in the game. So let's get this started, shall we, and see what we have. First today, we have our Energy Generator. It's our Ride Deck Crest. Auto Ride Deck. When you would ride, put this into your Crest zone. If you win second, you get to Energy Charge 3. Continues to have 10 energy and auto begin your ride phase, Energy Charge 3. Then act once per turn by Energy Blasting 7, you get to draw a card. So you get a 3 free energy every turn, and then you can Energy Blast all of it at once in order to draw a card. And because the only card in this deck that actually costs energy is our Grade 2 Farheart, you're able to use that skill whenever you want to draw a card, or pretty much anytime you're going to be using energy, you're going to get some hand cards. So it's a nice Ride Deck Crest to have, and it is mandatory, so that's why we have it in the deck. Moving on, we have our starter in Divine Blaze Eye and Re. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto roll second draw card, standard starter, nothing about it, it's a free draw if you go second. You can make this any starter you want. None of the ride line requires this card, but because I like to use the canonical ride lines of decks, I've chosen to make a Blaze Eye and Re our grade 0 here, so one of in the ride deck. Then we have our triggers. Let's talk about the over trigger and Dragon Deity King of Resurgence Drag Veda. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger in your deck. As a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one mutes. It gets plus +1 for a turn, and if you have it during draw check, activate its a dish effect, which you get to choose one from Vanguards and stand it. All pretty solid because you get a free million in a draw the second you check it. But then on top of that, if you drove check it, your Vanguard gets to stand. In a deck that can do multi-attacks, that's great, especially if you get to pull it off on your Vanguard's first attack, because you could possibly get a total of 3 Vanguard attacks in this deck, since the Vanguard can actually stand itself if you manage to get 2 more copies of it in Soul. Orange Drag Veda is a nice over trigger to have. You can run Walnut for more consistent multi-attacking. You could run Asphoria for recycling, which is also very helpful in a deck that sends a lot of stuff to drop zone and you want some of them back to hand, especially if they soul charge. You can run the Dark Over trick for healing and calling, but I personally prefer Drag Veda for the extra Vanguard attack, so one of him. Then we have our normal triggers. We run a total of 2 copies of both Flare Veil Dragon and Blaze Maiden Prama, so 2 each. 2 draw triggers, 2 front triggers. Both have continuous guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, they get 5,000 shield. Flare Veil has 4,000 power and 5,000 shield base, and Prama has 4,000 power and 15k shield base. Both of them are pretty solid. Flare Veil is here to help increase the hand because, again, you want to have specific units both in Soul and on boards, so being able to get access to them into hand and then possibly send them to Soul is what Flare Veil is here for, while Parama is a way to help increase the numbers of the front row, which can be a little bit difficult since sometimes you have to willingly give up a boost and a multi-attack deck, and being able to add 10k to the front row on top of Kotihblaze giving all the restood units 5k is helpful to have, so we have 2 of each. Then we have a total of 7 crits, 3 copies of Rogue Beast Sunagosari, Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. You can make this any crit you want. I choose to make it Sunagosari because I was lazy and I copied this deck straight up from Vargas, so we have 3 crits of Sunagosari. Then we have 4 crits of Burning Flail Dragon, Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, and found this unit boosted, shove to Soul to choose one unit you can take for the turn. I'm pretty solid because it goes to Soul and it gives someone 2k. That 2k most of the time doesn't make the difference, but the important part is the fact that it goes to Soul, meaning it could technically set up for Kotihblaze to make it a restand target the next turn if you really need to call a trigger down to board, and it gives you an extra free Soul that you can just Soul Blast out for some of your Soul Blasters in this deck. So total of 7 crit for that pressure with the restand multi-attack, 2 front for front row power, 2 draws for increasing hand, and obviously 4 heals and refreshing Wind Dragon Dino Breeze. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. You can make this any heal you want. I choose to make it Dino Breeze because most heals and crits I tend to like run as a duo, so if I run one of them I by default have to run the other, and Dino Breeze and Sunagosari is that like duo here where if I run Sunagosari I have to run Dino Breeze and vice versa. You can make Dino Breeze any heal you want though. You can even make the counter heal, though personally I prefer the normal heals over the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield of the counter heals, but you do you when building this deck. Moving on to our normal units, we have 3 copies of this cute little salamander in Burnt Lens Salamander. So sadly in the game that you hopefully see going on in the background, because again I have no idea how I'm going to edit this, but we will see. All I know is I've played the game before this, but I'm not watching the game as I'm recording this like I technically originally intended to. But point is, Burnt Lens Salamander sadly didn't get to show off in this game, but he's a really cool grade 1 with grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto when put on guard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard or Kotihblaze in the card name, until end of the battle this unit gets auto and retire from guard circle, you may send it to soul, an extra 5,000 shield. All around pretty solid for a grade 1 because it means it has a 10k shield, which is nice, adding for a little bit more defensive power with Kotihblaze, while you can go all in on the attack with your other units, but also it can send itself to soul, so just like Burning Flail over here, it means on your next turn, if you really need just to commit all your defensive cards to the offense, it turns itself into a restand target for Kotihblaze. Are making for a very solid grade 1. You don't want to see too many of it because you want to focus a lot more on the offense, but still having here for defense is great. And who's gonna say no to this little guy? Look at how cute he is. He's like so slender and cute. I just want to hold him like a baby. And look at his cool like blue red fire just combination. It's so cool, and I love this card. So 3 up for me, Burnt Lead Salamander. And then we have 4 copies of a card that I'm so glad I did this deck profile after I did the match, because I was gonna say something in the deck profile originally that wouldn't have made sense considering what happened in the match, and that is Firepole Emperor Dajura. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, act rear guard once per turn. If you have a grade 3 grade of Vanguard or Kotihblaze in the card name, rest this unit and choose a normal without Sentinel from the drop zone, put it to the bottom of your deck, and then choose one of your units with the same card name as the chosen card, and it gets 5,000 power for the turn. All around pretty solid because while it is once per turn, if you put multiple on the board, you can just keep sending stuff back. The downside is it's only going to send normal units back. On the bright side, this deck shuffles every turn, meaning you have a chance to get your restand targets back into your soul, even though you're going to have to technically send them to bottom, then use a skill. Hopefully you haven't used Kotihblaze skill to check the top 5 yet. Shuffle the deck, and then next turn you get to check the top 5. Otherwise, you have to use the skill of Kotihblaze, then send the stuff to bottom, then wait till your next turn, use Kotihblaze to then shuffle the deck, and then you have to wait another turn to get them out of deck. But either way, being able to send stuff back to deck is great and still give someone 5k in a restand deck. That's pretty good, even though you are giving up a booster sometimes, so it's 50-50. And then the ability that originally I was going to say I've never used before because I always forget it, but in the match that I actually recorded with this right before this, I actually was able to use this ability almost every time because I remembered it existed. Auto rear guard, when your grade 3 guard of Vanguard or Kotihblaze in the card name is attacked, put this unit to soul, choose over Vanguard to give 15,000 power for the battle. All around, pretty solid. The Vanguard Kotihblaze can be attacked by anything. It can be a Vanguard, it can be a rear guard, it can be the first battle, the second battle, doesn't matter whenever, doesn't matter by what. As long as the Vanguard's attacked, you can send Dajura from soul on anywhere on the board. It can be your front row, it can be your back row, and the Vanguard gets a 15k. You can be as aggressive as you want with Dajura and call it to the rear guard circle, and then if your opponent attacks you, you can just send it to soul, and you got a free, basically, critical trigger defending you. All around, Dajura is an amazing grade 1. I do love having it in this deck. It gets you extra soul. It, again, like the other guys over here, turns itself into a restand target for the next turn, and it can bot deck your stuff and still give numbers, making this card a very solid 4 in the deck for me. Then we have 4 copies of this grade 1 that I was also glad I did the match before this for, because I was going to say something, and part of the deck I built around specifically worrying about this grade 1, and then the match proved to me that I had nothing to worry about, and that is Drag Wizard Nahid. Not Drag Wizard, Drag Gritter. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto discard from your hand during your turn during any point, shove this card to soul. So Kotihblaze has an ability to discard, but we don't need to focus on that part. The main thing you want to focus on is the fact that you can discard this for ride deck and send it to soul, which is great. And then auto rear guard, when your unit in the same column as this unit stands by the card ability of your grade 3 grade of Vanguard Kotihblaze in the card name, it does count itself because it says your unit in the same column. Doesn't matter if it's itself or the other unit in the same column. Then Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards in the same column as a stand it. So essentially, if the unit in front of it stands, it can stand itself. If this unit stands, it can stand the unit in front of it. All around, Nodded is an amazing grade 1 because it essentially allows you to stand a column for only a simple Soul Blast. And originally, I thought that was going to be a problem because I thought I was going to have to Soul Blast out duplicate pieces of cards that I have in Soul and on board, which means I would have multiple turns of restanding the same unit. I thought I'd have to Soul Blast them out early so I could restand a column. No, this deck gets a lot of Soul really consistently. I don't really need to worry about that as often as I do. I mean, plus we have plenty of free Soul Blast targets, technically like Burnt Lead Salamander, Burning Flail Dragon, the entire ride line. So yeah, Nod is all around pretty solid. It gets you a free Soul every single time you discard it, which could be upwards of 3 times per game. And not to mention the fact that it can stand a column when you restand, making for essentially 33k columns consistently. 4 of this grade 1. Just really great to have for offensive pressure, and because it doesn't require the opponent to be at a specific grade, it means you can start beating them down the second you hit grade 3. So 4 of him. That takes us to RPG in Guardian Monk of Raging Flames Monju. Grade 1 boost, 0 shows, K base continues Sentinel. If the first Sentinel is in deck and let's put on guard circle, choose what means it cannot be hit on the battle if your hands 2 more cards in it. Choose card from your hand, discard it. Standard PG. Nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if there's only one of the cards in your hand when you place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard one's great, because that means you be as aggressive as one in the early game. Yeah, spam the ever living hell out of these 2 I say keep this one in hand, and then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, give them the middle finger, throw out Manju, and you're good to go. So the thing was, originally this deck was very hard for me to use, but then after using set 6, like, I didn't even test it out before this video. So, like, for the record, what you're seeing now on camera, hopefully, this is my first time using Kotihblaze since its debut, and yeah, this deck feels really consistent now. Like, I felt like I was actually able to do what I wanted to do with the deck, but where before I couldn't, because it felt like I had to do weird combinations to get specific stuff in Soul, but apparently I can trust the deck to do that on its own. Aura Manju is a very solid PG to have. You can be as aggressive as you want and then still be able to defend yourself later on in the game. You can run Spark or Ejector Dragon, or you can run Twin Buckler Dragon. They both have the same effect as Manju. I choose to make it Manju as my PG though, because it came out close to the time of Kotihblaze release, so 4 of. That moves us on to our last grade 1 in the deck. 1 of in the red deck, none in the main deck, of Divine, Blaze Ear, Sinful. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto and Rotopon by Flame Severing Dragon Baldurus. Soul Boss 1, check the top 7, choose up to 2 cards with different grades from among them, reveal them, choose a grade 3 from among them, put it to your hand, and then shove the rest of the revealed cards to Soul and shuffle the deck. Okay, upsides, it's only a Soul Blast, and again, you have free Soul fodder, and essentially the entire ride line, or in this case, is always going to be the start of your Soul Blast, or it could technically be itself. You flip top 7, and at least 1 goes to Soul, possibly 2, and you get a grade 3 to hand. This deck only has 1 grade 3, and that is our main grade 3 over here in Kotihblaze, so essentially, you are only ever going to add a Kotihblaze to hand, and then you're going to send the rest to Soul. Downsides is, that gets you possibly 2 cards that you have to send to Soul, because, I mean, granted, it says choose up to, so if you only see, like, a trigger in a grade 1, which I saw in a later game that I'm also recording for this video, I don't know if it's going to get shown or not, because I have no idea how I'm actually going to set this up, but you don't have to add 2 to Soul, you can only do 1 if you just want to only reveal 1 card, though I for some reason chose to reveal a trigger, because F it, but being able to get 2 cards to Soul is great, get you double restand targets for later, check top 7 for it, so you have a good chance of seeing things you want, and worst case scenario, has a Persona right to hand. Simple, very nice 1 up in the red deck, none in the main deck. Only downside is though that if you end up seeing multiple cards with the same grade, grade 2s, you're gonna have a problem, so take that as you will. Moving on to our grade 2s, speaking of which, 4 copies of Drag Ritter Farheart. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto and put on guard circle from your hand or discard it from your hand while riding from the ride deck, CB1 or Energy Boss 3 to draw a card. All around pretty solid. You don't really want to use the CB skill at all because you have other cards use CB, such as Jaden over here and Kotihblaze himself, obviously. On the bright side, he is the only card in the deck outside of the energy generator itself that uses energy, so feel free to use all your energy you want on that skill to end up increasing your hand for free draw, whether you're using it defensively as a guard card or using it as ride deck fodder because maybe you already either used all your not hits or you don't have them in hand, so take that as you will. And then the other skill is auto when placed on rear guard circle. If you persona of this turn, CB1 or Energy Blast 3 to choose a grade 1 less without sentinel from the drop zone, call to rear guard circle. That is incredibly important because one of your most important grade 1s in this deck is not hit, and you want to have 1 on board at all times, meaning most of the time if you have multiple in hand, you're going to keep 1 and you're going to discard the rest as, you know, discard fodder so you can keep standing not hit and send them to Soul. But in case they end up in drop zone, when you persona ride for your final turn, presumably, Farheart's going to be the guy that brings it back so you can restand a column later. All around, very powerful grade 2, very useful in the deck, 4 of. That brings us to 4 copies of Drag Ritter Jaden, another defensive card. Grade 2 SF 5k shield, 10k base, auto when placed on rear guard circle. If your vanguards are grade 3 regard to Kotihblaze, CB1 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards, kill it, then ditch a hand card, choose another opponent's rear guard and kill it. Cool. So if you just randomly need to kill your opponent's rear guards for whatever reason, because maybe they're pesky or maybe they're a very heavy rear guard focused deck and they have their important stuff on board, use one of your CBs with Jaden, kill it, and then ditch another hand card, kill it. All around pretty soft for this rear guard murder and board control, and then auto and retire from rear guard to guard circle. If you have a grade 3 grade advantage Kotihblaze in the card name, you may shove this card to Soul. Cool. Not a mandatory shove to Soul, so if for some reason you need drop zone count cards or your opponent needs you to have a specific number of cards in Soul, you can just deny them with that skill alone. But then also it works when retire from rear guard or guard circle by any means. So you guard with this, it goes to Soul, or you just simply call over it from rear guard, it goes to Soul as well. And it works during either player's turn, so if your opponent manages to get rid of it, there you go. All around, Jaden makes for a very good grade 2 and just overall board control and consistency, because it's not going to be your main restand target, but hey, you know what, he goes to Soul, so there's still that, so 4 of Jaden. And then we have 4 copies of our first of our 2 main restand targets. That'd be Flame Kickboxer Tyron, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard when this unit attacks. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Kotihblaze, this unit gets 5,000 power for the turn, so 15k power each time it swings, or 15k, then 20k, then 25k. And then auto rear guard at the end of the battle, this unit attacks into anything. Choose a grade 3 card with Kotihblaze in its card name from your ride deck and reveal it. If you revealed a card or your vanguard is a grade 3 or greater Kotihblaze, shove this card to Soul, draw a card. All around pretty solid because you can constantly flip over the Kotihblaze in your ride deck or use the Kotihblaze on your vanguard circle and get yourself a draw and a Tyrant in Soul so you can restand on the following turn. The best part is this doesn't require the opponent to be a specific grade, and you don't have to be a grade 3 either. You just have to have the Kotihblaze grade 3 in your ride deck, so you can do what I love to do, and I'm pretty sure I did it through the games that have already been shown on camera at this point. You can call 2 Tyrants during your grade 2 turn, send one to Soul, get a draw, and then keep the other one on board, because if your opponent doesn't kill it, boom, you got a Tyrant that you can use in Soul as a cost to restand the one that's currently on board with Kotihblaze next turn. And like I said earlier, he gets 5k each time he attacks, meaning in a multi-attack deck where he's going to attack twice, most likely, 20k swing. Tyrant, amazing grade 2. I love having this deck. He gets numbers, he gets Soul, he gets hand cards, is a great grade 2 rush target for of. That brings us to 4 copies of Scorching Burner Dragon. Grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto plus on rearguard circle. If your vanguards are grade 3, go to Kotihblaze, send a grade 2 as card from your hand to Soul, and this unit gets 5,000 power for the turn. All around pretty solid because it gets you an extra card into your Soul, and not to mention the fact that it makes itself a 15k for that turn, which doesn't sound the greatest because, you know, Kickboxer over here essentially gets 5k every time it swings, but it gets you a grade 2 to Soul, so you can get himself and get one of your other units that you want to get into Soul for restanding, which is amazing as well. The only thing I could wish would be better for him is that he gets the Vanguard 5k as well. But I mean, hey, you know what? Once you're on Kotihblaze, that essentially gives you a free rearguard restand, and he does it for free, and he can be placed from anywhere, meaning you can superior call him from deck via Kotihblaze skill and still proc off the effect, making him a solid 4 in my opinion. That brings us to the last grade 2 in the deck. One of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, a Flame Severing Dragon Balderas. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto and wrote upon by a grade 3 card with Kotihblaze in the card name. Draw a card, choose up to 1 grade 3 card from your hand, call it to rearguard circle. And if you did not call, choose a card from your hand, discard it. So pretty much no matter what your hand looks like, even if it's PGs, triggers, persona rides, doesn't matter. If you ride upon this, draw a card, call whatever is in your hand, because you're either getting a unit on board or you're just straight up ditching a card. So it doesn't matter what your hand looks like, unless your field is absolutely full and perfect and you do not need a call, you are calling a card to rearguard because you're losing the hand card anyways, might as well make it go to board. And then continues rearguard. If your vanguards are grade 3, go to Kotihblaze, against 5,000 power, active on player's turns. So it's a 15k once you hit grade 3, but you don't get that skill off ever because this deck doesn't have a way to call from drop zone outside of, course, Farheart, who specifically calls grade 1s. So you're never going to proc off that ability. It's mainly here just to increase your hand and then also give you a rearguard circle onto board. So maybe it's a Tyrant, maybe it's a Scorcher Burner. Hopefully it's one of those two. If it's not, hopefully it's either one of these two, and worst case scenario, it's Burning Fill. After that, you're kind of just grasping at straws. But either way, Balderas being able to get your rearguard on Rotapon is great because at least allows you to have a little bit more consistency pressure on your board, and to get you a hand card too with it, so it's a nice one of in the red deck, none in the main deck. Which brings us to our last grade 3, or our last card in the deck, which is our main grade 3. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck, of a card I genuinely used to not like, and I honestly think it may have just been its debut set, because Ember Breath, as I realized, sucked. This deck just feels so consistent using now, and that would be Fire Emolition Dragon Kotihblaze. Grade 3, 200% right, 13k base, act Vanguard once per turn, counterblast 1 to check the top 5, choose to 2 grade 3 list cards with different card names from this unit from among them, reveal them, choose 1 of the revealed cards, call it to rearguard circle, put the rest into your Soul and shuffle the deck. So it's not mandatory to call something to rearguard, so if you just want to send 2 cards to Soul, because again your board's perfect, you can just send 2 cards to Soul, but most of the time you're going to be able to call 1 to rearguard, send the other to Soul. Maybe you're lucky like me one time when I played this deck and get 2 copies of the same card, so you can send 1 of them to Soul and then call the other one, because it does say different card name, but it says different card name from this unit, not from each other, which is very important. And the other ability is Auto Vanguard, not once per turn, so if you proc this with Drag Veda, you could technically get the Hell's Infinite Loop that happened with Ethics Buster all the way back in Break Right era, meaning essentially you can get 8 attacks in a turn, which is Auto Vanguard. The amount of the attack perform one of the following. Soul Blast 2 for both, but specifically the first one, you just Soul Blast any 2 cards. For each card Soul Blasted for this cost, choose up to 1 card, choose up to 1 of your rear guards with the same card name as the card Soul Blast, stand them, and then they get 5,000 power. So say for example, you have both these 2 in your front row, and then you Soul Blast out a copy of Scorching Burner and Tyrant. Well, you stand both of them and they both get 5,000 power. On top of that, Nadin will then proc, so you can then Soul Blast another one and then stand it in the back row. I have pulled off that combo enough on camera already for you guys to see that, because it's literally happening right as I'm saying it, or it already happened earlier in this video. Following that, if you either Soul Blast 2 cards with the same name as himself and ditch a hand card, you can stand him, give him 5,000 power, and lose a drive. So he'll be an 18k, probably a 28 because you probably Persona Row, road, and you'll possibly discard an Auden, which you can then send to Soul and proc off that same restand in about 5 more seconds. Overall, Kotihblaze is an amazing grade 3. Only downside to this is 9 times out of 10 he won't restand himself, because that does involve you soul blasting 2 copies, and it is kind of hard getting 2 copies of him in soul unless you're running a bunch of generic soul charges, which as you can see this deck does not run. But hey, you know what, he gets you a rear guard and gets you a soul card for only 1 CB, and then pretty much every turn with this deck you're going to get at least 5 attacks, and because these attacks can be done without the Vanguard, without the opponent's Vanguard being a specifically grade 3, that means you can be as aggressive as you want and bully them down. So if you get the first grade 3 turn, you're going to have a fun time against your opponent. And this ability doesn't require the opponent to be at grade 3 either, so if you build like a hyper soul charge deck to get 2 Kotihblaze and soul, you could definitely do a double Vanguard attack the turn that your opponent's at grade 2, which is nice. So all around, 3 of the main deck, 1 of the right deck, great for board presence, and just all around a really good multi-attacker. At first it felt convoluted, but now it feels really good and consistent. I love playing this deck. I think it's super fun to use, so I definitely recommend anyone that is interested in trying out a multi-attack deck for Dragon Empire to give this one a try. But without further ado, I'll end this one here. I hope all of you enjoyed. I hope you guys like this deck profile format. Please tell me what you think. This is a little bit rushed because this is being recorded the day before it goes out, so I don't have much time to edit it, but hopefully it looks good. If you guys have any comments on how I can make it better, please do. But I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us on Twitch, and don't forget to send up your Vanguards.